Take a deep breath and take a deep out breath. Welcome to the second class of the Eye of the Needle meditation course. And remember again to tap into your intuition. Remember again to tap into your innate, soft wisdom that is before your brain and before your regular thinking patterns and before your regular mind. Tap into that stream of softness that contains all the wisdom that you naturally already are. Remembering we are not seeking anything outside of ourselves. We are simply putting the flashlight on what's already inside ourselves. Today we're going to look into the subject of emptiness. Emptiness is a huge subject. I'd say it's the main topic, the main wisdom in Vajrayana Buddhism. And it's what all spiritual and wisdom traditions point to. And it's what our science and our quantum physics points to as well. It's a building block of reality, but emptiness is far from being a block. Emptiness is the main subtle material that makes it possible for all of existence to come about and for all of existence to change and have movement and evolve. So this is our subject today, emptiness as the backdrop of everything. In other words, emptiness as the basis of everything, or emptiness as the source of everything. If we think about a cake, we cannot have the cake without the elements that go into making the cake. You can't have a cake without all the ingredients that make up the cake. Whether it's a cooked cake, a vegan cake, a raw cake, doesn't matter. The cake exists because of the existence of these ingredients. And so all of life out there, all of creation, physical creation out there, as well as all of us, our internal life, our internal processes, our intimate life, is also possible due to the main ingredient of emptiness. I'm going to talk this class, it's going to be a more intellectual class, so we can wrap our intelligence around the intellectual aspect of emptiness, in order that we can have the experience of it beyond the intellect. I find it's useful to grasp the significance of emptiness first, before believing in it, before experiencing it in ourselves and in the world out there, and before being able to see it as the one basic reality underlying all of existence. So, emptiness is the base upon which all is created. And we're going to get to the meaning of emptiness in a second, okay? Everything physical and non-physical has as its base emptiness. The sofa you're looking at, your emotions, your pet, your children, your anxiety, your orgasms, your peacefulness, the tree, the plate of food in front of you. Everything, absolutely nothing escapes emptiness. There is nothing that is not of the nature of emptiness. Nothing. What does emptiness mean? It is easier to understand the concept of emptiness by understanding what emptiness is not. Emptiness is the opposite of inherent existence. What's inherent existence? If something were to exist inherently, let's say this cup. If this cup exists inherently, it means it's completely separate and completely independent from absolutely everything. In other words, nothing created it, and nothing will ever happen to it to make it change. It appeared out of thin air, boom, like this, and will exist forever exactly like this. So much like this that even my thoughts about it wouldn't exist, because it would have no relationship to me. It wouldn't be in relation to thoughts. It would be completely independently existent, not dependent even on my hand to hold it up for you to see. And it doesn't mean that something that exists inherently is just an object that levitates, right? It's not that. It's an object that doesn't exist. Therefore, it's very hard to explain it, because it's very hard for us to imagine something that is not connected and does not change and move through time, that does not come into existence and out of existence through time. A completely inherently existent object would be just that, an anomaly. It would never change, it would never be affected, it would have no source from where it came from, it would have no separate ingredients that made it up. An image that comes to my mind when I try to think of something inherently existent is the monolith in the 2001 Space Odyssey. Something that just appears. Has no past, has no future, but even the monolith creates an effect on the monkeys that are looking at it. Creates different emotions on the monkeys. So one monkey is excited about it, another one is curious about it, another is scared of it, and another is aggressive towards it. So that already makes it an object that is not inherently existent. You see what I mean? An inherently existent object is not dependent on causes and conditions, is not dependent on its parts, and is not dependent on any history that was part of the process of that object coming into existence. So if this cup was inherently existent, it would be completely independent from the glass maker, from the material glass. It would be completely independent from all the factory people that made it happen. It would be independent from the truck that brought it from the factory to the store to this house. It would also be completely independent from the water inside. And it would be completely independent from me and from everybody else. It would be an existence in and of itself. It wouldn't even generate different feelings or different reactions from different people, it would generate one single feeling and reaction that it itself would own. See, the minute an object emits different reactions from different people, it's already not independently existent. If something were independently existent, it would be one thing only, forever and ever and ever, in all eternity. It would never change. It appeared from nowhere, and everybody in the whole planet at any one moment would see it in exactly the same way. So that object doesn't exist. We can try and find it, like I said. The monolith is the closest I got. So inherent existence doesn't exist because it's an antithesis to the nature of creation, to the nature of life. It's like saying, here is a seed that will turn into an oak tree. And here is the seed that appeared from nowhere and will never turn into anything. So it's not a seed. It doesn't exist. Everything is in constant movement, constant transformation, constant growth, constant decay here in the physical realm. So this rock solid, one thing, unchangeable for all eternity, in all of time, in all of existence, does not exist. And that is the meaning of emptiness. The fact that inherent existence does not exist sheds light on the truth of emptiness. In science and in quantum physics, scientists have proved this by going into any object and trying to find the one fixed, basic, rock-solid building block, atom, that will make up any one object, let's say this cup. So they dissect, they find that one atom, that, I'm not sure, the electron, I guess it is, but still they can dissect further, and the truth that they arrived in is that everything is 99.99999 space. There is more space than solidity in everything. So even here in the world, in the solid world, that's what we have found. There is not one solid, unchanging thing. Oh, there it is, that electron. It's unchanging, and we cannot dissolve it further. No, everything has as its internal nature pure, empty space. Everything. It's a mind-blowing concept, because what our eyeballs receive is the solidity of everything all the time. But what we are coming up against in the physical world, and in our mind, and in our emotions, and in our physical structure in our body, our diseases, everything, our well-being, everything is of the nature, ultimately, of space. And that space is emptiness. It is the emptiness of what? It's the emptiness of inherent existence, the unexistent monolith. Emptiness means everything is empty of inherent existence. Nothing exists inherently, independently, by itself, unchanging. So if there's one scientific and subtle and spiritual and cosmic and universal building block for all of existence, one common denominator sheet under everything that exists, it is emptiness. So that's the intellectual explanation of emptiness. The fact that emptiness exists allows for everything else to exist. If we had at the basis of our existence not emptiness, but if the nature of all of existence was something inherently existent, like this book, let's say this is inherent existence, and the whole of creation theoretically would be here. If this was inherently existent, the basis of creation was inherently existent, there would be what? There would be no creation, because nothing can come from something that is inherently existent. It does not create, it does not change, it does not transform. Nothing springs from it, and nothing created it. It had no causes and conditions before, and it creates no causes and conditions after it, if we're talking about time. If the basis of reality was inherent existent, there would be no you, there would be no me, there would be no experience, there would be no light, there would be no dark, there would be no changes, there would be no nothing. There would be nothing. If we can imagine that nothing, that absolute nothingness, there wouldn't even be the nothingness of a black hole. There wouldn't even be the nothingness of the absolute state of reality, which is something way further back than we explored in the first class. But just go with me for a second. Even the states that we can imagine in a black hole would not exist. There would be no connection. So the basis of reality is emptiness, because from emptiness, from it not being a solid self-existent structure, anything can happen. It is user-friendly. It makes a user-friendly universe. It's extremely user-friendly. It can be impacted. There can be causes and conditions. There could be effects. There can be changes. There can be growth. There can be decay. There can be going up, going down. Everything that we experience as existence is due to the backdrop or the basis of emptiness. So this feeling into this emptiness is very similar to the exercise that we did in the first class. Creating this sensation of the disappearance of the world outside of us and the disappearance of the body, and tapping into what always remains as our consciousness awareness. It's about softening our allegiance to the physical solidity of the world. It's about softening our allegiance to our own belief that things are inherently existent. When something comes into existence, let's say a chair, we name it and we give it an identity. If that chair is in our house, we say, chair, pass me the chair, and we give it an identity. That chair has been here all its life. I don't care about that chair. That chair, I bought it in this place and I love it, and it was very expensive, and it's a designer Italian chair and I cherish it, and oh my God, there's a scratch on it. What are we going to do? We place fixed identities and fixed names onto all of the objects. All of the objects in the world have a name. and an identity. And they generate a feeling for us, or they don't, or they're purely utilitarian, or they have a history. This is not my grandmother's cup, this is just a cup in this house. But you see, we are constantly locking in identities into every single object. And we do the same with ourselves. We do the same with our thoughts and with our feelings and with our emotions and with our experiences of the world. We lock them into a very fixed container. We give it a name, we have a feeling regarding it, we have similar emotions come up every time that we get in touch with it. We have similar memories pop up from inside our brain when identifying with that emotion. There's a whole universe of very fixed points regarding our own emotions. We start to relate to things out there, like the chair, and our emotions, as independently existent. You see where I'm getting at? Our natural impulse, due to A, B, and C, is to relate to things as if they are independently existent. We relate to things inside and out in a way that is completely opposite to the true nature of everything that's inside and out. That's why it's so shocking to us when things change. I had a good friend of mine in Brazil. He was walking his dog one day, a Labrador, and the Labrador was fine, and he was walking at night. The Labrador was without the leash, so he walked all the way across to the end of the block, and my friend went after him, and when he reached the corner, the Labrador was dead on the floor. He tried to revive the dog. He brought the dog home, took it to the vet. The dog died. He had a heart attack and died. And it was a very difficult moment for my friend. And one of the Buddhist lamas that was with us in Sao Paulo at the time, he brought up the sentence, "That is the shock of emptiness. And that is the shock of impermanence." Emptiness equals impermanence. That's a major equation of our experience. There's no other way around it. Emptiness equals impermanence. Everything is impermanent. But because we relate to things outside, like our Labrador dog that we love so much that was 10 years old, when that outside thing changes, when that dog changes, because he is of the nature of emptiness, because he is natural, when that dog dies, we are shocked. Before the sadness and the grieving and the beautiful process of emotionally making love to that process of death happens, there's a shock. Death. He was here, and now he's not. And it took a millisecond. What happened? Where is he? Where did he go? That is the shock of impermanence. And the fact that we feel that shock points to the fact that that is not our experience. Emptiness of inherent existence is not our natural experience all the time. If it was our natural experience, we'd be much more like nature. We'd be much more like a flower, like a tree. Like a flower is a great example. We'd be born, we'd blossom into beautiful color without demanding anything from anywhere, without feeling any feelings of lack, without feeling sadness that we're going to die, without feeling jealous that the other flower is pink and I'm yellow. And we would just blossom and slowly decompose and die. If we lived within that natural flow of the truth of the backdrop of emptiness, There would never be shock when change occurs. Any kind of change. From happiness to sadness, from coming together to splitting apart, from birth to the experience of death, from somebody being nice to us to somebody not being nice to us, from success to failure. All these are names that we give, and each name is accompanied by a battalion of memories and emotions and thoughts and projections and names and forms and everything. It's so rich. So we're constantly inventing a world based on the illusion that we have that things are inherently existent, even though all we have is the constant experience of emptiness, of impermanence. And that is so rich, that experience of emptiness and impermanence. It demands for us to marry that. That marriage depends and asks of us to completely let go, to completely ride that horse as it is, to completely stop trying to control things, control ourselves, control our environment outside of us, but to ride it as one, to trust existence. That marriage with emptiness, that ring that emptiness wants to give us is forever. And when we say yes to living that way, to experiencing reality more and more as it is, it brings about in us a beautiful process, which is of becoming more quiet on the inside, to truly see what our reality, emptiness, is. I'll call her she, just for now. What does she look like? What does she do for real? How does she behave? What is her nature? It's a real humbling and opening experience to just stop projecting my own fantasy of inherent existence and control, and really look at her for once, and doing that more and more, and dancing to the dance of the truth of emptiness, rather than leading with our dance constantly, which is what we usually do. It's a state of vulnerability which is highly enlightening and very powerful. It's that unique combination of feeling vulnerable, being generous, in other words, stepping back from our own patterns and projections, and seeing what is really out there, and trusting what truly is, and saying yes to that marriage, saying yes to that union, because you are of the nature of emptiness too. But we have been rejecting that. We reject it. Sometimes we reject it, sometimes we're closer to it. We do this movement constantly. Once that rejection is rejected, and you just say, okay, no more of this, and you move closer to that sincere understanding of emptiness, which is visceral, which is spiritual, which is subtle, which is a merging into the divine matrix of all of existence. Once we're able to do that, a whole new level of growth and experience starts to open up. Very different. Like in the last class, when I was saying about the eye of the needle being the middle point between too much effort and slopping down. Once you reach that middle point in yourself, a whole world opens up. And when we're thinking about emptiness and feeling into it and meditating into it and just falling in love with it, the same thing applies. It's not something that we need to get. We might need to understand it intellectually first, but it is already our nature. Okay? Never anything we need to get from the outside. In the physical realm, if we take my body, for example, and we put it on a slab in a hospital and we start to dissect it, we will not find in any of its parts the essence of the body. And eventually my body will completely disappear. If we dissect, there won't be like one solid meteorite ball that is undissectable, and then go, oh, there is Rebecca, there is the essence of Rebecca. And we take that rock, and we put it in a box, and it will never change, and that's Rebecca's essence. Nobody has that, okay? So in the physical world, we've seen in science, like I said, we dissect, and we reach the atoms, and it's 99.9999% space. Because my body sprung from the creative principle of emptiness, it means it is also of the nature of emptiness and will return into emptiness. There is no before and after and what I was. There's no like basis. Because my body sprung forth from the creative principle of emptiness, it means I am emptiness. But I'm already emptiness. It's not because emptiness is emptiness. I am emptiness. Everything is emptiness. This is just a clearer way to understand it. So because I come from the pool of emptiness, I am emptiness, and I will return to emptiness because I am of the nature of emptiness. Nothing holds. Nothing sticks forever. Everything is impermanent. Everything changes. Body is a word. It's an image. It's a story we tell to encapsulate the momentary appearance of body so that we can communicate with each other. That's the body. A body is nothing more, nothing less than a bit of information, of visual and visceral information in the world. We can see it, we can touch it, we can smell it, we can sense it. That's all it is. Candace O'Denver, which is a great teacher of the emptiness teachings, talks about these appearances in the world. Everything's an appearance. This is an appearance. This is an appearance. This ring is an appearance. I'm an appearance. This computer is an appearance. That fireplace is everything's an appearance. Your thoughts an appearance. Your fear is an appearance. Your love is an appearance. Everything is just appearances. Candace O'Denver talks about these appearances by calling them data points. Like in a big computer screen, you got all data points. So everything we see in the world is simply data points, appearances, appearing in the backdrop of emptiness. which Candace O'Denver calls open intelligence. That's another word for emptiness. It's the word that she uses. All appearances come and go from the ground of emptiness. You think of emptiness like a movie screen, and the movie that's projected onto it are the appearances. The appearances come and go. Emptiness is what makes it possible for us to see and experience the movie. If there was no screen, there would be nowhere for the movie to be projected. There would be nowhere for the movie to come from for us to experience it. So everything, we could see it as a great big movie filled with appearances, filled with data. And it all springs from this ocean of emptiness. Because it is empty, everything that exists can come about. Because it is empty, everything that we haven't yet even imagined can come about and will come about when we imagine it. When we get into that place where we want something new and create it, it will come about, because that is the science, that is the nature, that is the endless ease of use of emptiness. It supports all of creation as it is. All appearances come and go from the ground of emptiness like waves in the sea. This is an example that's been used a lot. But it took me a long time to go, oh, that actually, it's right. No appearance, no data point, no sofa, no person, no you is separate from the ground of emptiness. No wave in the sea is separate from the ocean. If all of us here were waves in the sea, the equivalent of how we or most people live their lives is, let's say I'm a wave and I'm coming out of the sea. I go, I'm independent. I'm not the sea. I'm not the sea. I'm A, B, C, D, F, G, and I'm like this, and I'm separate from all the ocean. I'm separate from all the other waves behind me and ahead of me. I'm separate. And I'll just dive into the sea again. That is the equivalent of how we experience existence and reality. It's quite amazing. It's very beautiful too. It's this human urge to differentiate, this human urge to separate is a source of great creativity and is also the source of great suffering. But if we can join great creativity with marrying ourselves as we are, then can you imagine how different all of creation would be? How different architecture would be, science, health, poetry, everything. Everything would change. So there appear to be two things. There appears to be us as we are, inherently existent in our mind, and there appears to be this thing, emptiness, which is the ground of emptiness. Two things. But they're actually one, just like there appears to be a wave in the sea and there appears to be the ocean, but they're actually the same thing. Comes from the ocean, goes back to the ocean. Appearances come from emptiness, as emptiness, and return back to emptiness. We only attach ourselves to appearances as inherently existent. This book is mine, it exists inherently. I know its covers, everything I wrote inside is super secret. It's mine, it's unchangeable. We only attach ourselves to appearances as inherently existent when we believe we are inherently existent, separate. When we don't realize our collective nature and essence and emptiness. I can only relate to something outside of myself as inherently existent. This book, that person who's annoying me. If I have a belief that I am inherently existent as well. If I don't believe I am inherently existent, I will not believe that the other is inherently existent. I will not believe that this book is made of inherently existent paper, inherently existent lines, inherently existent binding, inherently existent letters typed here. I will know its nature because I know my nature. You see? When we relate to ourselves and the world out there as independent appearances, we are in the illusion of separation. That's how we live. We live like the wave, believing it's not the sea, but a wave. We live in the words. We live in the illusion of separation. We live as inherently existent beings. And we relate to things outside of us as being inherently existent. This independence and separation that we experience is scientifically impossible, like science has shown, and we like science, so it's already been shown in our world, in our language, that this inherent existence does not exist. Yet we experience our thought process via this lens of inherent existence, and the result is suffering. Usually it's suffering, because we are insisting in a way that is contrary to nature in the ultimate sense. Imagine a cube of ice in the desert. And all we want is that cube of ice to remain as a cube of ice. And there it is, melting super fast right in front of our eyes. The effort that our emotional system and our thought system and our physical system makes in not wanting that ice to melt and believing that there is the possibility that it will not melt, and holding on to that as an existence that we want. But the actual reality of the ice melting, it's like we're living in a cage of immense illusion all the time, not wanting things to change and dealing with them as exactly what they are not. And in that process, demanding of them things that they cannot ever do to make us feel good, to make us happy. Nothing change so that I can be happy. And when things do change, that affects my happiness. So you see, we're using up way too much energy projecting a reality that's not true, and then we're using way too much energy silently or out loud demanding that that thing not be its nature, because we do not relate to ourselves as being our nature of emptiness. You see? It's inside as well as it's outside. So once we start changing in our internal approach and looking into how solid actually is everything I'm feeling, you know, all my thoughts and emotions, they spring from this bed of emptiness. They come into existence and they disappear. They come into existence and they disappear. That's how things happen. We don't have a thought or an emotion. Now think about ice cream. And then forever, for all of eternity, I'm thinking about that same fixed image of ice cream and it never changes. That's not how things happen. They come into existence, they disappear. Everything is like that. Made of, it's like dreams. They just come in and come out, come in and come out. We fix in our minds and forget that we are not very apt at updating our mental images. Let me tell you what that means. For example, when you see someone at 4 years old and then you never see them again for 20 years, do you maintain the image of that child in your mind as a 4-year-old for these 20 years, or is your mental image updated in real time to the growth of that child? We maintain the image that we saw at 4 years old. Then when we see them again 20 years later, we're like, oh my God, Johnny, you look so different. You're all grown up. You're a man. It's amazing. I remember when you were 4. It's just shocking. Look, you have a beard. You're married. Oh my goodness. It's just a shock. That's a shock of impermanence in a more positive way. We're surprised when things change. So going back to that idea of like us not updating our mental images, which is something we should do, much like we do it with our computer, you know. Our thought forms and mental habits and belief systems are rarely updated. Some people are very good at updating their thoughts and their belief systems and their projections and their ideas and their emotions about whatever it is that's happening. It's like, is it still like this? And go into it. And other people, I think a lot of people, I've definitely done this a lot, is a thought form, a mental habit, or a belief system triggered by whatever it is, experiences that we've had in our life, tends to fix, and it doesn't change. We don't update it like that image of the 4-year-old, you know. Why do we do that? Let's say we experience, we have an experience that causes an imprint in our mind, in our heart, in our body, in our thoughts, and we hold on to it because we believe we are separate and things out there are separate and things out there happen to me. I am a victim of things that happen to me. We fix that experience and we feed it every day sometimes with fresh memories, with fresh emotions, with fresh thoughts, with fresh dialogue and logistical processes of why that thing happened and why it means that and why it makes me feel like that. So we're constantly reviving something that inherently only lived for that moment. You see? We go back to our experiences and revive them every day. And we do that so much that it doesn't even take any more effort for us to revive our experiences, revive our idea of ourselves, even if it's not a good idea of ourselves, even if it's based on suffering. We're constantly feeding that because of the idea that things exist inherently, and this happened, therefore it means that. When in truth, the nature of every experience, the nature of every thought is 99.999 space. It is of the nature of emptiness. It is inherently non-existent. We create the illusion of inherent existence by feeding that. It's like watching a movie over and over and over again, the same movie. We may tweak here a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. Psychology and therapy help us to dismantle that movie because it starts to run on its own so fast that it becomes a block. It becomes a solid thing that could stay the same forever. And actually our experience at 14 and our experience when we're 65 of the same event is completely different. Yet the revival, the constant revival of that frame of mind at 14, constantly through the years, makes it so that that experience cannot transform. That wave cannot grow and release itself into the ocean again. So all our thoughts, all our ideas, all our identifications spring from emptiness. They are of the nature of emptiness, and they return to emptiness. So watch this week for all the times that you solidify an experience. And we are constantly doing that. So once we start diving into this exercise, we'll see that we're constantly doing that. But especially watch in your mind and your emotions when negative emotions come up. When emotions that don't seem so beneficial. Every emotion is beneficial, but let's say for the sake of this argument, when emotions that aren't beneficial to you come up, investigate, look inside the movie theater of your mind and your heart and investigate how you have put a pin on that emotion and how you have a story about it and how you have fed it with memories and colors and sensations and feelings and put a pin on it and put it on the board as a fixed thing. See how you've done that with your own emotions and take that pin off. There's nothing to hold on to, and it's totally fine to let it go for a moment. Have that experience. Give it back to emptiness. Give it back to the pool of your basic intelligence, the pool from which you spring from, emptiness. Give all your experiences back to emptiness. It doesn't matter what they were. And remember, try not to grade them. This was a horrific experience. This was a more or less uncomfortable experience. This was an amazing experience. Even giving away your amazing experiences, let that fall into the pool of emptiness. That will bring you more joy than the experience of joy that you are holding on to and taking on as yours and trying to keep in a way. Let everything fall into the pool of emptiness. Let everything return to its original nature. Allow that. Be generous. Allow it. Allow it, because emptiness allows you to have all the experiences you want. So, for a change, allow your experiences to have the experience that they want, which is to return to the source of emptiness, to have their existence and change. It is no experience's desire to have an experience and solidify and fix. It's like being stuck in a nightmare, in a bad dream. It's like being stuck in a horror movie, in the same scene over and over and over and over again, the killing scene. Dum, 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 dum. And it's a projection, but it causes so much suffering. It causes tension because we're moving directly opposite to its nature. It's like not getting a lion and putting it into a tiny cage with cement in it. I mean, it's still a lion. Definitely, it's still a lion, but keep a lion in there for 20 years and then have a lion free. What's the difference? They are both lions, but their experience of their life is miles different. They might as well be from different planets. So yes, everything is beautiful, everything is creative, but I want to ask us this week to always fall back into the generosity of emptiness, which is who you are. Remember, emptiness is calling you because it's your truth. And the way it calls us the most is when we suffer because we are making things solid and inherently existence. That's emptiness going, hey, that's not me, that's not you, that's not us, that's not your nature. It's nice, it's fun, it's creative, but try this. For God's sakes, try this. It's going to be amazing. Try this. So give everything back to emptiness. Just let it all rest as it is. Everything is already released in its own place. That's another Buddhist philosophical saying. Everything that appears, a bad feeling, let's say, is already released in its own place because it is of the nature of emptiness. It is born released, it lives released, and it returns to release. So watch this week for the illusion cinema, repetition of a nightmare scene, and the building and how we build that in our minds, how we make that happen. It is all in us. That momentum to fix things is in us. That mechanism is in us. I'll write this down, this exercise. Just give everything away. Give everything away. Let everything return and be released where everything springs from. I am here. I am released. I'm here. I am released. I'm here. I am released. This person is aggressive to me. That appeared. It is released. It triggered an emotion in me. I closed down. I closed down. It is released. Don't let the story come in. When the story comes in, it locks it into place, and we have the whole encyclopedia of what happened, and then we fix it and we put it in the shelf, and that's the story of that forever. No, I felt bad. It is released. It's not true. It's not fixed. It's not forever. That is not its nature. It never was, and it never will be. So watch for the movie theater we're in, where we're creating fixed things, and which is the opposite from letting things come in and be released. I had a beautiful, loving moment, a beautiful, expansive moment. I saw this, I felt this, I was released like this, I felt so amazing. It came as release, and it was released. Don't try to hold on to it. Don't try to repeat good moments, because every new moment is a good moment. Every new moment is a good moment. Nothing will stay, and the fact that nothing will stay and we're okay with that will make it that we live more in this ground of bliss of appearances and disappearances, bliss of appearances and disappearances. So yes, watch for the revisiting and reaffirmation of the inherent existence that we create, and how we resurrect them over and over for any number of reasons. As we fell back into awareness, our more constant nature, our background of awareness, our consciousness awareness last week, which is very intimate to us, now we're going to fall into the ground of the truth of emptiness, consciousness, which pertains to everything. You will never meet or come across anything that is not of that empty nature. So we are always meeting ourselves. We are always coming into contact with ourselves. Always remember, everything is of the same nature of emptiness, arisal, disappearance. Be more fluid like that. Be smoother. I like to use the analogy of your life being more like a watercolor than a fixed ballpoint pen drawing. Where does one color start? Where does the other end? All that water, all that space. between the watercolors. It makes for that image. So our life like that. Everything is moving within everything, because everything is of the same basic ingredient of emptiness. Return back to that pool. Give it all back to that pool. Be generous. Let's connect to one another through this video as emptiness. See how we are all of the same substance. Our illusions differ. Our stories differ. That's our creativity for our life. But our essence is the same. Remember always your body is 99.99 space, and everything around you as well. And that space is filled with love and light. Love is love, or compassion in Buddhism, and light is wisdom. On the basis of love, wisdom moves. One is of the essence of the other. Love and wisdom. Mahamudra, the great seal. Love and wisdom. The Buddhists have the bell. It's love, compassion. And they have the dorje. It looks like a little lightning bolt, a little thunderbolt. It's wisdom. Love and wisdom together. That is our nature, that is our essence. Wisdom, emptiness. Love, compassion. Understanding it. Compassion. For you. For us. For one. For the same. It's an endless bliss party that always returns to itself. How different that is from the illusion of separation. See? It's two different things. But even the illusion of separation is of the nature of love and emptiness, love and wisdom, love and bliss. But we can have the experience that we choose, the experience that we move more into. That is the experience we will have. So I thank you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on Wednesday for our group talk. Bring your questions, bring your doubts, bring your experiences, so that we can get into more and more true experience of these very subtle points. Okay? I love you.